This is episode 42 of our road to Unicum, and today we review the Škoda T50. This is the excellent Tier 9 Czech medium tank, and it's currently my favorite in the game. We're going to review footage from two battles, a Tier 10 Serene Coast battle followed by a Tier 10 Swamp battle, and just as I did in episode 41, the light tank guide, even during the countdown, I'm pinging the map to show where I'm planning on spotting, and I'll do this whenever I'm in a light or medium tank, or even in some selective tank destroyers such as the E25 that have good spotting capability. You have two options on this map as far as good places to go as a medium tank. You can either spot where I'm going, which is on the bushes on the north side of the lake, to try to spot their heavies that are crossing to the east toward that peninsula, or you could go over to C1 to brawl. But usually I'll come here because they have 5 heavy tanks to try to help my team get some early damage and cripple their heavies. And here I'm gonna hit reload on my clip, and it turns out that this was a mistake. Now, in general, you want to carry three shells in your clip to begin any engagement, but I got a little antsy there. I could have waited, and if I'd waited, I probably would have gotten 2 penetrating shots on the side of that Conqueror. So a little bit of a missed opportunity there. But knowing when to time your reloads is a very big key part about playing an autoloader well. And you can see that there's a bunch of tanks on the map now starting to brawl over in C1, and it looks like the low-hanging fruit in terms of the heavies who choose too close an approach line towards lake is done. So I've spotted the one Conqueror. They know, their team knows, if there are any other tanks that were in the vicinity of the Conqueror, that there are people spotting across the lake and firing in that area. So, it's a time like that, you're not really going to get too much more out of staying there. And you notice I've turned on the UI settings to draw both the max render distance, which is the the yellow line, and then the white circle, which is both the max spotting range, and then also it happens to overlap with the view range I have on this particular vehicle. So I'm trying to keep their tanks toward the edge or outside of the white circle so I don't get spotted. But what I'm looking for are some tanks that are overexposing themselves. And where I am, by the way, is a pretty dangerous position. It's very much out in the open. You'll notice I get spotted here in a moment. But this will give me some time to put down that Centurion, and then immediately seek some hard cover just in case they have any snipers aiming. You can hear someone's firing in this direction. I don't know if they're firing at the Batchat 12T or at me. And it looks like we're losing the brawl over on C1. It's a little late for me to go over there now, plus they have a lot of heavies, and as an autoloader, I have a lot of downtime between reloads. Actually, not a lot. Like, it's 21 seconds for the Škoda T50, right? So that's certainly shorter than some of the 30-second plus reloads you'll see with autoloaders. But nonetheless, I need to be careful where I choose to go. And in this case, I pushed pretty far south along the map, so I'm not necessarily going to get any support. There is an Object 260 coming, but this is a pub match. I don't know if he's going to keep coming this way. And then the Scorpion, for whatever reason here, wasn't looking in my direction. Now, he had been hit previously, so I knew that he had less than 800 hit points, so I could reliably down him with 3 shells. And if you look at the map flow or game flow, we're in a pretty awkward situation. They've won the western half of the map, so there's nothing to stop their heavies to pushing up all the way till around the railroad tracks around B5 and spot our arties and get them killed. So what I'm doing is hoping that I can catch one of their heavies isolated. In this case, there's a Tiger 2 here, and I do eat a shell in return, but I need to get out of here. And honestly, I would have eaten a second shell right there, except their Tiger 2 just missed. He is firing full premium ammo. He should have nailed me with that APCR. But there's also a Victoria nearby, so I got to be careful of that. And then as I'm rolling up here, I notice that there's some enemy tanks here that are visible, but they're fully tunnel visioned on the heavy tanks that are to the northeast of them. And so I take my time aiming in those 3 shots to put down the T49 and then the Conqueror. Now, you'll see throughout this video, at times I will snapshot the first shot or remaining shots, and I'll do that to compact my burst, but I'll only do it if I'm still going to be able to finish whatever I am aiming at. Our 260 is pushing solo to the south, and he's putting himself into a pinch, which is pretty unwise, also making himself a very attractive target to Artie, because obviously they're going to be motivated to get rid of him. And I started to think about moving around to help him, but it's too late now. And so what I want to do, I see this M103 moving down from about the D5 area, and so what I want to do is apply the other side of the pinch. He's coming from the north, I'm coming from the south. We're going to be able to put them under some heavy flanking fire, and then maybe pick off those heavies before they can get to a more dangerous position. And then the Tiger II, right there, first shot I snapshot, it doesn't land, so I take my time fully aiming in the next two shots because I can't afford to miss. And I did eat a shell from the IS-7, so he had flexed back all the way from C1 back towards their base, which is actually a pretty good play because it looked like we had tanks overextending. They picked off for 260. I need to stay away from the IS-7 because he's got a fantastic armor layout and a very hard-hitting gun, and this guard on their side is caught in a 3 versus 1, and I timed my approach so that once I came out around the railroad tracks, I was just about ready to start firing, and I took the time to make sure that my gun was fully aimed in. Alright, so we have just cleared out the northern half of the west side of the map, so while we had lost map control, we've now regained it, and we're arguably in a better position. Obviously, we're up 2 tanks, but beyond that, the only tank that they have on the western side of the tracks is this 212A. So notice as I'm heading south, I am approaching on the far western side, and I'm trying to stay both below the railroad tracks and below these ridges because I don't want the IS-7 or anyone else to spot my approach, and this way we'll have the element of surprise on this 212A. I don't want him splashing me as I come in, and notice I'm clicking the map again to let Artie know I'm about to light him, but because he's not going to have time to know that we're coming, it increases the chance that I'm going to be able to just clip him out really quickly. Speaking of the clip, you know, the Škoda for an autoloader has several unusual characteristics. It has a very fast intra clip reload of 1.8 seconds, so you can get all 3 shells fired off in about 3.6 seconds, which is very fast, and it has good gun handling and excellent gun depression of -8 degrees. Now check this out. Here I check to make sure the TDs in front of me can't shoot me, then I inch up on this hill so I have a field of fire on the IS-7, and notice in between each shot I'm backing down a little bit. I'm a little higher than I need to be because I don't want to expose my turret to those tank destroyers, and because I was hitching back, it caused that E3's shell to bounce off of the top of my turret, probably a very extreme angle. You know, it was funny, it was about this point in the battle that I realized I had a chance at a Pools medal. I've already racked up 8 kills, but, you know, honestly, I'm just happy to win the battle, so I'm not going to force anything here. You know, I do have a good chance to get some damage into this Conway, and then our M103 finishes them off. I do have 2 shots remaining, but, you know, the E3 has a super tough armor layout, and in this case, there isn't really anything attractive to shoot at. You know, there's like the cupola, which is a pretty low, you know, percentage penetration, especially from, you know, this tank silver ammo. I picked up an Ace Tanker Mastery badge, and that definitely was a little bit of a weird game flow because of the way we lost west and I was so far pushed down toward their base. So we're going to look at a different type of situation with Swamp in a second here, but notice, you know, I picked up a lot of spotting damage, partly because, you know, very beginning with the Conqueror and then later with some of the tanks that I was spotting. So the second match, this is the Tier 10 Swamp battle, and I am platooned with Marine, who is a Unicum, a really good player, very active poster over on the Watt Labs forum. So it was fun for us to run this battle together. He's in the T30 and I am in the Škoda T50 again. And we're talking about where we want to go. From the South Spawn, there are 2 logical places to go. The first is the J1 section, which is just to the west of the castle. And by going there, as their heavies push up the castle, you'll get flanking shots on them, and then you can also shoot at tanks that get spotted along the 3 and 4 lanes. The other place that you can go on this map, or where I go sometimes in a medium tank, is over by the D7, so the eastern edge of that big rock that kind of looks like, I was going to say the state of Texas, but not really. But the only reason why I'm not going there is because in the Škoda T50, since it's not a single shot tank, once I fired my 3rd shot, you know, I've got to wait about 21 seconds to reload, and that's a pretty long time to potentially be caught out there, especially if tanks bomb rush you. And so you can see, like, we have a lot of tanks that are kind of clustering on that ridge along the GH line, but we don't really have anyone pushing up along the eastern side of the map. And you definitely don't want to push solo, obviously, or even with just one other tank. It's too few to hold back other tanks if they push in strength, unless you've got snipers who can clearly cover you. But the problem is where our guys are hanging out over on that G ridge, they're facing north, they'll get spotted pretty easily by other tanks on this map. Now here, I was thinking the KV-4 wouldn't see me, so I was going to take my time in and aim on his lower plate, but the defender is so close that he spots the top of my turret, and I eat a shot. And that's pretty sloppy on my part. I should have recognized that the defender was going to be able to see me and, you know, end up trading some of my hit points for nothing, which is something you don't want to do. And, you know, the thing with the Škoda T50, it is capable of spotting, and you'll see me spot a lot in the mid to late parts of this video, but you want to be careful about doing it too early because, you know, usually if you spot a tank, there'll only be, from a distance, there'll only be a limited window where you guys can exchange shells. And if you both fire one shot at each other, if you're in the autoloader, that just doesn't make sense for you. So, you know, after I fired that first shot on the KV4, go ahead and reload, and I'm just being patient. To some degree, for this J1 position to work, they need to push up with their heavies, continue pushing south toward Castle, and then I'll get some flanking shots. So here, these are very safe shots I can take on the KV4, and notice he's not lighting me even though I'm firing, and then I finally get a shot at the side of his turret right there to get on the scoreboard. You can see our heavy tanks are now pushing aggressively out of Castle, but their 121 has already pushed down to about F8. So, and their Indian Panzer is on the bottom part of our GH ridge, so that means they can spot our snipers. And I just missed on a tracking shot there, the KV4, to finish him off, but he's now one-shottable. And we're down in a 2-tank deficit, and then reading the map, you can see they have a lot of tanks east. They're totally controlling that side of the map, and so I need to flex over there and do something about it. Now their IS-7 is there, so they've got a lot of threat. And part of the problem is, you know, the people on our team need to read the map and recognize what's happening. We're in a 2-tank deficit. Our heavies cannot safely continue north without crossing large areas of open ground where they're going to get pooped on by Artie. Right, so I'm trying to tell them, turn around, come back, help us with the east, just pushing. Like, for some reason, people seem to have this default mentality that if we're winning a side, we need to keep pushing. And in some cases, that's true, but in this case, they have a lot of tank destroyers. Those guys are going to get wrecked, or they're going to get stuck, right, because they're going to get out-visioned. And, you know, these enemy tanks are so far on the eastern side of the map south that they're going to be capable of spotting our Artie. And once our Arties die, you know, our support is gone, we're going to have a pretty huge hole. So I need to start working some damage. Now this Indian Panzer is exposing the rear of his tank here, so I very quickly put 2 shells into him. I miss a 3rd shot, but he gets finished off because I helped soften him up enough, and we want to go try to take out some of their lead tanks here. And Marine and I are both seeing the same thing. You can notice we both pivoted away from the castle side. We're both heading east now, and the key thing is to find that one tank that's slightly overexposed. Like in this case, it's this M4A1 Revelarice. He's overexposed and he was too high on the ridge. His armor is very soft, so we're able to put 3 easy shots into him, and then Marine takes out their 121 right there. Sorry, we just quickly heavily damaged one tank, picked off another one. We do need to be really careful about Artie. And check this out, the T-34 is moving up for a shot, and Marine does something which is really clever. So I'll show this. This is Marine driving. When the T-34 is peeking up, Marine actually drives forward. And that seems counterintuitive, but by driving forward, in order for the T-34 to hit him, T-34 would need to drive up on the ridge even more to expose himself. So it's a really subtle thing, but sometimes if there's a ridge between you, you'll actually be more safe if you move toward the ridge, because they have to come up and over the ridge to shoot down on you. And their most dangerous tank is the IS-7. He's also the most exposed. He should not be out in the open like this. He really should have either pushed up the gradual slope where the Ravioli was along the 7 lane, or come down the water pipe just like the T-34, but we catch him in no man's land and take him out. You notice like our western heavy tanks, as I predicted, they've stalled out. Right, like the other E100 is dead, the 268's gone, and our remaining E100 is basically can't go anywhere now. He's stuck, and you know, who knows how much Artie damage he's going to take. That first snapshot I missed, I get one shot in the T-34. He moves down, which is wise. It gets him out of my field of view, so I drop my 3rd shell into the T-28 prod, and that really is an important thing. In general, you want to take the easiest shot unless there is a clearly high value target that's worth taking down. But you just want to gradually whittle away your opponents. Don't try to force damage. I see non-Unicums chase damage on Unicums all the time. It's not the wise thing to do. And then notice that as my clip was almost reloaded, I crested that ridge to get in position to start aiming. So as soon as my gun is ready to fire, I can start pounding shots into that T-34. Alright, I started to swing over to the side here. You know, my spidey sense was starting to go off in terms of we haven't really checked the middle ridge for a while, and I spot one of the tank destroyers coming up here, put one shell into him, and then I think that M46 Patton, our friendly, also put a shell, so that tank destroyer has now been damaged enough where I can clip him out later. Notice I had one shell left. I go ahead and hit reload, and so again, if it looks like you either need to hide or it's unclear how long you're going to have to wait until you get into your next engagement, go ahead and hit that reload button. You know, it's 21 seconds of downtime where I can read the map and think about what I want to do. Now, the score, we've managed to claw back to a 9-9 tie. That is actually very misleading because a bunch of our tanks are very beat up, and Marine actually has to play, he's playing the back half of this match with only 500 hit points. So, but there is like an element of blind man's buff because we don't know where their T30 is, and we don't know where their STRV nor their 183 are, but because they've all been spotted in between the 1 to 6 lanes, or sorry, yeah, 1 to 6 lanes, I'm going to assume that they're probably still over there, and maybe they might have pushed into the middle somewhere. So I'm moving up carefully to see if I can get some spots, and I have to do this. If I play too passively and we just hide in the southeast corner of the map, eventually they're going to surround us, they're going to have flanking fire, and their RD is just going to eat us up. So get this T30 lit and put 2 shells into him, which is really good, softening him up. And then I'm going to wait patiently behind this rock. You know, a lot of times after you've been spotted, there's no point for the next 10 seconds of driving away from the rock unless you need to be somewhere, right? Because there already or other players may be aiming at you that you can't see. Now, what I'd like to do is see if I can get some shots or spot a tank destroyer. So here's that other tank destroyer who we had damaged earlier, and I finish him off. I do eat a shell from their Swedish TD, who is somewhere to the west or northwest of me. He might still be on that shelf where he was spotted a while back over by D4, so I can't push into that open area to try to get behind the T30. So now I am flexing back and see what I can do as far as helping out against this T30 and this Emil 2. The Škoda T50, it has pretty good acceleration. It doesn't have particularly good agility, so the whole traverse isn't as butter smooth as some of the other medium tanks. And then the tank has a limited top speed of 50 kilometers an hour, which is good compared to most tanks, but it isn't like the 60 plus that you have with some of your faster medium tanks. But that being said, as long as I'm anticipating places to go ahead of time, this tank has plenty of speed to flex and to be useful that way. Their STRV has pushed up over towards the H4 area, and that's a nasty tank. Like, frontally speaking, anything I fire at it is going to bounce off unless I happen to hit the cupola, which from this distance is a pretty tough shot, and he has a very high rate of fire with a very nasty gun. So Marine and I are both thinking about the same thing, which guy do we want to go after first? For the reasons that I mentioned, the T30 is a far easier target to deal with. It's much softer, has a very long reload, and he's pushing up toward Marine, which gives me the opportunity to snapshot a shot on his flank. And look at this from Marine's perspective. He plays this perfectly. So he's going to move out, quickly take a shot, and then drop back in quickly and make the T30 chase him. So I'm able to pick him off with an easy flanking shot, and we get rid of one of their dangerous tier 9 TDs. And then Marine just stays tight to that hill, so he's not giving their RD any opportunity to shoot him. Okay, so again, I'm going to pivot toward the eastern side of the map. The problem with the STRV is he can outspot me. We'll either see each other at the same time, or he will outspot me if he's stationary and he's got binocs, especially if he's sitting behind a bush, because he's got such good camo. And it's possible that he drove up over by the castle. Right now we don't know, but what I want to do is see if I can somehow get to the side of them in case either the 183 or the STRV is in the middle of that swamp area. Okay, so Marine just spotted him, and now we're in a tough spot. Marine is being flanked on those two sides, so it's my responsibility to take out the STRV, and I shouldn't have stopped there. I stopped thinking the STRV may back up. What I should do is what I'm doing now is circle all the way around this rock and get a very wide field of fire. So even when the STRV realizes that I'm there, even with his speed, he's not going to be able to drive away fast enough before I can clip him out. And then now I need to get back and help Marine. But check this out. Okay, this is from Marine's point of view. He just got spotted. He moves forward just enough so he can't get shot at by the STRV, but then he spots the 183, and then he'll drive to keep that Scorpion between them. Now they're already fired ones, but Marine is using that Scorpion to prevent the 183 from using his gun. He lands a clutch shot there and then quickly tucks in behind the Scorpion. So this, and then, the 183 wastes his shell on the Scorpion, and during his long reload, Marine drives up and then lands another shot at him. And at this point, as long as we don't screw up, this game is in the bag. We had a huge hit point deficit. If you think about their 183 being at full health coming here, if he had pushed earlier in support of their other tanks and they just surrounded us, we would have died. But because we were able to draw out the battle and work 2 versus 1 isolations, work some angles, etc., that helped us to claw back a victory, which is really sweet, considering we were the middle tier here as the tier 9 tanks. All we got to do now is just spot the arty and the game's going to be over. One minor tip, but still important, is that in this case I don't want to drive up the 1-2 lines. It's possible, because there's so much open ground, that if their arty is sitting in a bush, that he'll spot me first and he'll have the first shot advantage. And if he shotguns me and I die, all bets are off. That who knows what will happen at that point. But as it turns out, this arty is kind of panicking, or I don't know if he's just suiciding, since his team's pretty much screwed. And that enables us to finish off this big carry. So got another Ace Tanker Mastery badge. We put up almost 12,000 damage and 7 kills combined. Didn't get so much help from our team. Our M46 Patton did do a solid job delaying them to the east, but really there's a lot of good coordinated play and leveraging the strong mechanics of the Škoda's autoloader to help bring us back. Let me know if you want to see the tier 6 through 8 tanks in the Czech line. I can make videos of those, and I want to take a moment to thank Sakar Masak, Clutch 50K, and Lenticular for their generous donations of gold and a Type 64 premium tank. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.